Welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Friday, August 18th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast. I am your host, Griffin Palmer, joined over the phone, as always, by CJ the Hitman Hickman and Jason Cabrera. What is up, fellas?
Yo. How was that nap, though?
Glad you could wake up and join us, Griffin.
Woo! Oh, man, these late nights, working multiple jobs, it catches up to you sometimes.
Yeah.
But, you know, batteries slightly recharged, back and ready to do the show. Camera's back on. That's exciting. After having a whole bunch of technical difficulties on Tuesday, they can see my pretty face again. And, yeah, we're ready to keep going.
Man, I'm sorry.
I know, it's pretty bad. But anyway, welcome to the show, everyone. We have an amazing show for you guys today. Today, we are getting to our final consensus position that we're talking about on the main show, and that is our consensus wide receiver rankings. We're going to be getting through our wide receiver ones today. As always, we're also going to bring you all the top headlines from around the league, so quite a bit to get to. Trying to get through it in a timely manner. We'll see how well that actually works out. As always, thank you, Jason. Anyway, please make sure you guys subscribe to the show. We are all over iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, the works. We are a year-round podcast. Please make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Lots of good content coming to you every single week, every Tuesday and Friday. You can submit your questions as well. We answer questions very commonly on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. You can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. You can submit your questions via email to thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. And of course, most importantly of all, if you want to support the show, help us keep these lights on. And they are bright. All you have to do, head over to Patreon, sign up, support the show, and you guys get a ton of bonus perks in the process. You get bonus episodes every single week, discounts on show gear. There should be another round of t-shirts coming soon, and a lot of other perks, including priority question answering throughout the season. Lots of cool stuff, and, you know, lots of return. You know, it helps us doing what we do, and we like to return the favor as best we can. Again, that's patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Greatly appreciate the support over there. And as we have been mentioning, with the Listener League, we mentioned on Tuesday's show, we picked all of our winners. 3 of them have not responded as of yet, so they have until Tuesday's show to respond.
Who these jive turkeys? Who these?
So far, I believe.
Okay, whoa! Watch the jive turkey talk.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, conversations before the show, classic movies. I believe we're still waiting on Chris Schapper, Equus23, and B Jackson, if memory serves correctly.
Oh, B Jackson, you troll.
Come on, B Jackson.
So I figured, you know what? Let's just open this up to everybody. So if we are recording again, you guys are listening to Tuesday's show, and we still have these 3 open spots, I'm going to throw it out to all of you guys. So, I mean, go ahead. We'll start right now. Comment down below on YouTube. Submit your request to join on iTunes. You can do it in a review there. You can, send us a tweet. Whatever. We're going to open up to all resources. Let's have some fun. So, if you are one of those 3 people who still need to sign up, you have 3-4 days to do so. So, clock's ticking.
You have 1 hour.
You have 1 hour. Yes.
We're going to do like an episode of 24. No, we're just going to start clocking down. You have 1 hour.
Wow. Anyway, so we're going to move past the warm-up.
While we're filming.
Okay, moving on. We're going to move past the warm-up question today because we have so much to get to. We move right into our top headlines from around the league. We're going to move right to the quarterback position where, and this was interesting, Buffalo Bills head coach Sean McDermott was non-committal about Tyrod Taylor's starting job following last night's preseason game. Of course, last night being Thursday. Man, so many reports coming out of Buffalo, and we've talked about this multiple times, is that it's just not going well in Buffalo. Everything seems to be really hesitant. The new offensive system is not going well. Tyrod Taylor has been struggling. We just talked about how they traded away their number 1 wide receiver, acquiring another one who then got injured the very first day of practice. It's not going well for Buffalo fans. Guys, what are your thoughts on Tyrod Taylor potentially losing this starting job?
I mean, look, I'd rather him just sit down. I mean, don't waste his talents. If the organization don't believe in you, and they refuse, like we've talked about in those previous shows, they refuse to adjust the system to make it work for the player and them and the betterment of their team, just sit down and let them lose. I mean, that's what Buffalo deserves right now. Yeah, they have a stubborn coach that doesn't want to adapt his system to fit the quarterback that's there. That's been good. That's been working for that system the last couple of years, even with Rex Ryan being there that brought him there. And we seen the rising star in Tyrod Taylor, and now they just treat him like he's a like he's a backup quarterback which he's not. He's not anymore. He's a star in the NFL as a quarterback. You need to treat him as such. So I'd rather just see them lose because they don't know how to treat talent, man.
Wow. Jason?
I just wonder who they're going to go with. I mean, who's better than Tyrod Taylor in that offense? I don't think anybody is right now.
No, the backup is T.J. Yates, so not a good
Oh,
situation.
Yates.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they do that, then they're tanking because Yates is not going to do anything, especially in the same division as the freaking Patriots. There's no way. There's no way they're going to get destroyed. So, yeah, no, they're going to start Tyrod Taylor. They don't really have a choice.
Well, we talked about this a bit on Tuesday's show, how it really seems like they're playing for 2018 and beyond, not necessarily this year. And, it's a new offense, new offensive system. So I can understand it being tough for, established players who are used to doing one thing. But, I mean, you're not going to get better production out of T.J. Yates or Nathan Peterman, so a rookie. So it's I think it's coach.
Do it. Just sit him down. Do it.
Sit him down. That's what. CJ always quick to raise the pitchforks. All right, so that's something to monitor. But again, most of the fantasy value coming out, especially for standard leagues, coming out of Buffalo right now is really just LaShawn McCoy, and then it gets really murky very quickly after that. Let's move on to Jacksonville, where Jacksonville Jaguars head coach Doug Marrone refused to commit to Blake Bortles as his starting quarterback. He said he is competing with Chad Henne currently. So, wow. So that's something.
Ask me to Henne.
I've been seeing a lot of stuff about this recently, and all the receivers are disappointed and frustrated with Blake Bortles, and the coaches are frustrated with Blake Bortles and all this kind of stuff. The guy's arm is getting back into par, and he's trying to get back to where he was. This may just be them pushing him to do that. I mean, they've already said a couple things that if I was the starting quarterback of that team, I'd be a little ticked off. And I was saying things like, oh, I never want to throw the ball down the field. I just want to hand the ball off every single down. That would tick me off. And then he's talking about, okay, now he's competing with Chad Henne. So I think they're just trying to light a fire under this guy, and it may work. Who knows? But the bottom line is, right now, things aren't looking good for Blake Bortles.
Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to watch their second preseason game yet. Of course, that's what the weekend's for. We'll talk more about that on Tuesday's show. But
right.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see what happened because it's a bad day when you're choosing Chad Henne. He had his time in the limelight, and it was not overly impressive. CJ, anything you want to add before we move on?
Hey, man, he sucks. There's nothing else to say. Garbage.
CJ, not
I've
one
been saying it.
Fanatics.
I've just been on this soapbox saying that Blake Bortles some cut is some straight garbage for weeks. Just waiting for y'all to wake up, man. Wake up, my brothers and sisters.
I mean, like I said, he's been a fantasy quarterback one for the last 2 years, so it's good for what we do. All right, well, let's move on to the running back position, where Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott has officially submitted his appeal for his 6-game suspension. The trial date is going to be set for the end of this month on the 29th, which is a Monday, if memory serves. So, guys, most leagues will have been... Well, they'll be drafting at that point. That falls into the gap between the Week 3, Week 4 games. So, I mean... Yep. This is late. I mean, this basically means we're not going to have any new information until well after a lot of leagues have drafted. And, we really are going to be drafting Ezekiel Elliott and gambling here. It's really a leap of faith. And Ezekiel Elliott, his draft stock has already plummeted. He's already going as I think he's down from the 3rd pick in the 1st round to the 3rd pick in the 2nd round, and his trajectory is still dropping. So, I mean... We talked about this a lot on last week's show. Do you guys think that we get any type of resolution to this before the season starts?
It's going to be tough. I mean, best thing you can do is, once again, just keep your head on, Bleacher Report and ESPN, see what's going on. But, I mean, I was just in a draft recently and saw him go in the 4th round. And I thought that was a good steal. I mean, just because that's what little after the 6 game suspension. So I just don't know. I mean, it can go either way. I know I talked about this analogy before. What happened with the Eagles, Lane Johnson? With him doing this appeal, and it can might be the same thing with Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, if I was him, I would just go ahead and just take the 6 games now versus you fighting it, and then it stands, and then now you're serving that 6 games in the middle of the season instead of the beginning. So I know us fans, it sucks right now because you don't know where to take him, but his stock deserves to keep going down and down because you just don't know how many games you're going to get out of this guy.
Yep. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, you got to mitigate the risk, and that means he's got to drop. If you pick him up in the first round and he's out for half the season, you just wasted a first-round pick for half of that season. Pick him up in the second round, same thing. I mean, for me, I'm not really going to be comfortable taking him right now until the 3rd or 4th round because he's I don't know when and if he's going to be available.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about on Tuesday's show, the talent is such that I'm not taking him. I see him going probably in the 2nd, and so depending on where I draft. If it's early in the 2nd, I'm probably not going to take him right there. But if I'm in the back of the 2nd round, I'll grab him right there, early 3rd for sure. It's just one of those things like we've been saying. 6 games is 6 games plus a bye week, so that's 7 games out of your 14-game season. And I mean, you don't know when the suspension is going to be. If it's at the beginning of the year, that's completely different from being pushed back to middle to late in the year, where then he's missing your fantasy playoffs, where it's single elimination in 9% of leagues out there. So it's a huge risk, and we're not going to have any clarity come draft season. So you're drafting him at your own risk. I mean,
yep.
I would not take him at his peak. I would hopefully see him drop, but some leagues people aren't going to be up on the news. Some people they're going to overreact to the news in some leagues. So it's going to be case by case. So I mean, read the room, get a good feel for what your league mates are thinking. Talk about it beforehand. Bring up the conversation. Hey guys, what do you think about this Ezekiel Elliott thing, and see what they're thinking. So I don't know. It's going to be definitely case by case. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell, who is still non-committal on when he will report to the team. Only constant news is that he will be there before the team kicks off the regular season. So, guys, we all talked about how Le'Veon Bell is our number 2 fantasy fantasy running back this season. Is this
good?
making
Is that good?
He can play all 3 positions.
He's a triple threat. Is this affecting your draft stock in Le'Veon Bell, or is this just something where you might be being more cautious? What's your thoughts here?
I may, if I'm in a position where Le'Veon Bell's there, I mean, he's got undeniable talent. He is undeniably one of the greatest running backs in the league right now. I mean, he's top 3, top 2 for me. But this does concern me, because it shows his commitment level, and that's not good. That's not good at all. Does it worry me as far as that goes? I think if he's there, he's going to play, and I think he's going to be there. This is just about money. This is just about him trying to get what he wants, which I understand, but at the same time, get your butt back in the huddle, okay? That's your team right there. You want more money, you let them know that and work with them, but get out there and help your team out, So it's just annoying more than anything else. As far as does it bother my draft standings? No, I leave him where he is.
If he could report, like week 5, that would be amazing, because then, we'll have played them week 4. That's just one less thing we have to worry about. Ravens Steelers, big rivalry. Just saying.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either, but I will say, no, I'm not moving him in my rankings. He is too talented and too productive, but yeah. I am concerned, and we talk about this a lot. That's why there's so many injuries in the beginning of training camp, because people aren't in football shape. I will be concerned about Le'Veon Bell's health long term, so I will be looking at more running backs more early in my draft if I take Le'Veon Bell, because I'm looking to try and have some security there in case he does end up getting banged up. CJ, your thoughts?
Right.
Yeah, man, I'm a little disturbed by this. I did expect him to get in there early. I got this dude that was in the league I drafted on Saturday. He's basically trying to shop him now because he's nervous that he will be, basically be in football shape and be injured because he has an injury littered history. So it's concerning.
You were in a league that drafted after the week 1 preseason. That's so early.
I try to talk him out of it.
Man, that's so early.
I feel like I was with a bunch of preschoolers and they were just like, "What? Why? What's all this coming about? Come on, let's
Well, I mean,
draft."
that's like teams that draft like as training camp starts. It's like, okay, guys, I know we're all excited and we all want to get to it, but come on, let's be smart about this.
I tried my best to bang the table to get a pushback, but they just refused. So I was like, okay.
All right. Well, listeners of our show, at least you guys know better. I mean, nobody should be drafting that early. It doesn't make any sense. You're drafting play, and I we've talked about this in the past too, where it's like I get the argument, oh well, it's skill. You lose a player, you got to be able to adjust on the fly, just like the season. Yeah, but it's an unnecessary risk. Why are you doing that? The season hasn't even started yet, so it's dumb to cap your team or to put yourself at a disadvantage before the season even starts. It's dumb.
Right.
It's just lack of patience, really, which I understand, but it sucks. Anyway, so that's Le'Veon Bell. Let's move on to Seattle, where the Seattle Seahawks running back Thomas Rawls will miss Friday, so today's preseason game with a quote minor ankle issue. So I start rolling my eyes here because I've been hearing a lot of the news that is in kind of CJ's corner, like, oh, well, Thomas Rawls, we're not saying take him over Eddie Lacy, but maybe take him a lot closer to him because this could be a committee. Thomas Rawls could end up being the lead guy, and Eddie Lacy does all the red zone work, change of pace, all this stuff, and then this happens. I mean, look, Thomas Rawls is constantly injured. As Jason and I will attest, he's not as talented as Eddie Lacy. The only thing he has going for him is that Pete Carroll really likes him and that he has experience in this offense. And, injuries have been such a problem for him. And here he is with a, quote, minor ankle injury, which I have a hard time believing because he's had lower body injuries quite a bit. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts here?
Got to rest the starter, man. Got to rest.
Thank you, CJ.
Well,
gotta rest the starter.
Eddie Lacy hasn't been doing much.
Yep.
No, it's just more Thomas Rawls. I mean, the guy's always hurt, and part of that is because he runs like he's in somebody else's body. Like he doesn't care what happens to himself. He just bounces off the people and bounces off the things, and that's wonderful for during the game. But he always ends up hurt. So obviously something's not working.
He's so brave.
Wow.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Anyway, so yeah, he's rated. If you look on injuries, there's a couple websites out there. Sports Injury Predictor is the one I'm on right now, which says his chance of injury in 2017 is almost 60%. So that's ridiculously high. And they base that on statistics and previous injuries and so on and so forth. But that's Thomas Rawls. I accept the argument that he should be taken higher than he's being taken right now based on his ADP, but yeah, I'm not believing he's going to be the starter. Could it happen? Absolutely. Could this be more of a timeshare in a committee? Sure, but I have a hard time believing it, especially if Eddie Lacy keeps making his weight goals, which apparently the last one was very close, but we'll see. Last bit of running back news. The Philadelphia Eagles, have released running back Ryan Matthews. We talked about this on Tuesday. They were trying to figure out what to do next, and he passed his physical, and as has been the expectation all offseason, he has been released. So a decent running back hits the free agent market, and the Eagles have offloaded a cap hit. So, good news. And not much to add there. So let's move on to the wide receiver news, where Miami Dolphins quarterback Jay Cutler has said that Devontae Parker was a, quote, faster Alshon, end quote. Of course, referring to his time with Alshon Jeffrey in Chicago. That's pretty high praise. And I wanted to point out as well, the game that they played against my Ravens last night, Thursday, Jay Cutler targeted Devontae Parker 4 times in 2 very short drives. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on, for sure. What are you guys' thoughts here?
Mm-hmm. It's nice. It brings back your boy.
Yeah. I got to start warming up the Devontae Parker hype train.
Good.
It's starting to move off the track. I'm not a big Devontae Parker believer. However, with a new quarterback who likes to target him, his stock could rise.
I agree. So something to definitely monitor throughout the preseason. Let's move on to Jacksonville, where Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Allen Robinson had 8 targets in the first half of last night's preseason game. If you get if you get 16 targets a game, 160 targets in a season, I mean, that is wide receiver one volume right there. That makes your floor go quite high. I mean,
was the Henny
quarterback one for the last 2 years?
CJ. Okay, all right, we'll just move on. We're just gonna move on. Jesus, CJ. CJ loathes Blake Bortles. That's basically what we've learned. Moving on to Seattle. I'm just saying, volume alone, that's something to definitely pay attention to. Moving on to Seattle, where Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Doug Baldwin has resumed practice, returning from a foot injury, so that's good news there. This is a bit of disappointing news. In Arizona, where both Arizona Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians and Arizona wide receiver John Brown acknowledged the fact that Brown's sickle cell trait was still an issue for Brown's health. Arians also went on to question John Brown's place on the team if he is not able to overcome his sickle cell issues. Of course, this was a big problem last season. Rumors and news and everything we were hearing was that they had corrected the problem, moved on, he was all better, and now clearly not the case. I'm going to throw this to you, Jason. This is your team. What's going on out there in the desert?
Yeah, this is what I was concerned about near the end of last year when they said, okay, now we're going to focus on this sickle cell thing and see how we can get it mitigated. Sickle cell is not something you fix. It's not something that you can just go out and go, okay, it's fixed. We cut it out, it's gone. This is something he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life. And the question is, how well are they managing it? And over the past couple of weeks, it has not been managed well. He's had leg problems again, quadricep issue, and Arians has questioned whether or not he's going to be with the team very much longer if he can't figure out how to manage this issue. And the sad thing is, it's not Brown's fault. I mean, this is a situation that he finds himself in because of his genes. That's horrible. That's a horrible situation. This guy is extremely talented. So my hope is they figure out how to work around it and get him the touches that he needs and get him back up to his speed from 2015.
All right. Well, listen, Jason, I don't want to be a jerk here. Please, listeners, understand.
Well, too bad.
A jerk. Listen,
but I'm gonna be.
I unfortunately drafted this dude in this draft league I did this past Sunday, and he's on my bench. What am I supposed to do with this now? Look, I want him to get better. Truly, I want him to get better. But what do I do with this now?
I hold on to him for now. I drafted him as well. I was also in an early drafting league, and I drafted him as well. He's on my bench as well. He's still got wide receiver one upside, so I would hold off and wait because of two reasons. Number one, again, he's got an entire preseason. They can sit him down and work on this issue. And number two, Bruce Arians lies. He lies like a dog. So you have to watch out for the fact that this might be a work. This might be him sitting John Brown down and allowing him to rest, and without arousing suspicion, and then bringing him out as that number one guy when the season starts. It's happened before. He's done it before. So just be very, very careful. I would give him a little bit of time. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, the boom-bust potential of John Brown, especially right now with how little we know about the situation moving forward, it's you got to hold on to him, at least until you start getting into bye weeks. So let's move on to Washington, where Washington Redskins wide receiver Jamison Crowder has returned as a full participant in practice, coming back from a hamstring injury. So good news there if you are a Crowder believer. I know a lot of people like him to have a big breakout year this year. I actually don't know where we have him in our consensus rankings. We're not talking about that today, so I'll be intrigued to look at that later on. Let's move on to some tight end news, where San Francisco 49ers general manager John Lynch said that he and the team are, quote, very pleased, end quote, with tight end Vance McDonald. Now, I've been very pro Vance McDonald for a while now. I mean, he helped me win a big championship a couple years ago when I needed a last-second fill-in at the tight end position. Various offenses and offensive coordinators not knowing how to use him very well, has had up and down years. I mean, this is a guy that you can get undrafted right now. So, I mean, again, when I stream tight ends sometimes, this is a guy that is usually almost always there for me. So, depending on the matchup, he could be a sneaky ad. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
He's had good seasons. I like him.
Thank you, CJ.
Yeah, I mean,
You're welcome.
The situation with him is going to be the same as anybody else on that team, as far as pass catchers. We don't know how well this team's going to play. Probably not well. You know, they're rebuilding. They don't have a lot of talent on the offense right now. They don't have a quarterback. Okay, honestly, they just don't have a quarterback right now. So the question is going to be how well they. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, he's doing really, really well. That's wonderful. But that's not going to be production this year. You know, not until they figure out their quarterback situation, their offensive line situation, and what kind of dynamic they're going to use.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. Hoyer likes his security blankets, and that's usually the tight ends. And Vance McDonald's a very talented tight end that's really good and very sneaky in fantasy. And he might surprisingly have a good year because, I mean, Hoyer can't get the ball down the field, so he'll just probably dunk it off to the tight end.
I don't know why you guys are so down on Brian Hoyer. I mean,
because he sucks. That's why we're so down on him.
Because we've been watching him.
John Lynch came out at the exact same time talking about Vance McDonald, talking about how John Lynch thinks that Brian Hoyer could be a franchise quarterback. Just saying.
Listen, the heat out there is ridiculous. I mean, it's downright concussion worthy. So
wow.
I don't.
That's when you know it's a rookie GM right there.
Yeah,
that's
don't
when
let him do that.
I mean, for fantasy, okay, I wouldn't take him as a real life quarterback,
but
for fantasy,
Griffin. I wasn't gonna buy what you're gonna say about
in our league in
Hoyer.
2 weeks. I want you to draft Hoyer. You draft Hoyer.
You know, if the price is
you
right, maybe I will. Who knows? But no,
go ahead.
I'm just
round, you'll be there.
I'm just saying. He has been good for fantasy in the past, especially producing fantasy wide receivers. He was one of the quarterbacks there when Josh Gordon had his amazing season. So, you know, someone has to get the ball there. I'm just saying. All right, with that, let's move on to some other news where, per various sources, Los Angeles Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald's holdout is now threatening to last into the regular season. So,
oh my goodness,
that's bad news.
Hey, the man.
CJ, you're the big Aaron Donald supporter here. You concerned about this?
I'm very concerned. Pay this man. What else do you need? What else you need? Ever since you drafted this kid has been dominating each and every year, and now you get Wade Phillips. You bring this defensive line and coach in there, man. He's just going to utilize all the potential and talent out of him. But it can't happen if you don't pay the man.
I agree.
He deserves it.
A huge IDP option there that could be, everyone's going to draft him and is going to sit on your bench for a while, potentially. Go ahead, Jason.
I think that they should hold out with him. Let him hold out. Just let him hold out. In fact, let him hold out the whole season. Go ahead. Let him hold out, especially the games, especially the 2 games they have to play the Arizona Cardinals. Go ahead and hold out. No, don't pay him. Don't pay him. Let him sit on the bench. Let him sit there. These people are stupid if they do not pay this man. This guy is an absolute beast. He blows plays up. He controls that defensive line. He's awesome. They need to pay this dude and stop playing around. I completely agree with CJ.
Easily a franchise player for them, a face of the franchise on the defensive side. So, yeah.
Or trade him to someone who will pay him, because I'll tell you what, Arizona will pay him. We got no problem with that. We'll pay him. Bring him over here.
Yeah.
Do you guys have the cap space for him?
They don't.
We'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
Let's see.
For a player like that, they'll figure it out.
What does Family Feud say? Good answer.
The Arizona Cardinals currently have about $12 million to work with, so they have the 21st least cap space.
That ain't gonna work. You need to free up some more money than that.
Yeah. Well, at least it's not as bad as my Ravens. My Ravens only have $4 million to play with. It makes me sad. All right. We have the second least. The Chargers are the only team with less than we do. How did that happen?
All right, leading with injuries.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So
leading number 1 in injuries.
I think last I heard there were 9 starters on the offensive side that were out due to injury or suspension.
God.
Like I've been saying, our defense, even this second preseason game that we had last night, our defense looks fantastic. Our offense is atrocious. So, again, we could win a Super Bowl that way. We did in 2000. Who knows? All right, so with that, let's move. I don't think so. I can dream, dang it. Let's move on to some reviews. It's review time. We have 2 new reviews from iTunes.
Yeah.
Let's throw this first one. CJ, read this first one. Jason, you can do the second one.
All right, okay. So this is from Big Al, the Southern FF player. He left a 5-star. Absolutely. That's the only thing we recognize.
On iTunes, yeah.
On iTunes. There you go. Keep that up. So he says, I reached out to CJ on Twitter a few months ago to let him know how much I love the FF Fanatics podcast. The Fanatics aren't trying to entertain. They provide quality detail. Is it supposed to be consistent fantasy football knowledge?
Detailed and concise fantasy
All right,
football
all right.
knowledge.
Concise.
Oh, jeez.
Concise football knowledge. The podcast isn't about fluff. Dudes aren't trying to be comedians. No, we are naturally funny. Or trying to be fake arguments. No, we really hate each other. And AKA playing sports radio. No, we don't do that. I also appreciate hearing the different opinions, especially those that are not like my own, and providing into the backing it up. I wish more FF podcasts were like this. Fantasy football, their strong knowledge, in-depth analysts, and realness is why they are my number one podcast. That's what's up.
That was
I added that last part in there.
My favorite part of that review was when CJ said, "Backing it up."
Wow.
Backing it up.
Backing it up.
CJ, not very good at
Thank
cold
you, Big
reading.
Al.
All right, yeah, thank you, Big
That's
Al.
all
Though I
right.
think we're somewhat entertaining. We're not. There are plenty of other shows out there that try and force
We're
comedy.
not trying
He's
to.
ba-
We're not
he's basically
trying to.
Yeah, our realness and arguments are the entertainment. I
Yes.
think that's
We are actually
Exactly.
arguing with each other because we are passionate about our opinions.
This is real.
But we do want to make the point. If you guys are new to the show, we are all very close friends. We met each other doing stunt work where our lives were literally in each
Years
other's
ago.
hands. So a little argument. There might seem like there's tension, but it's literally just a debate. Don't worry about it. So
Except Griffin. I
except
hate Griffin.
I take it all personally, and everybody hates me. So there you go.
Actually.
So no, we appreciate
Actually.
the shout out, Big Al. Very much appreciate the 5-star review. CJ, that was a rough read, but good job, buddy.
Yeah, hey, listen. It is 3 o'clock in the morning.
did what he
So
did.
forgive me.
Peeling back the
That's
curtain,
true.
yes, it's 3 a.m. On the East Coast. So, all right, one more iTunes review. This one, Jason, take it away.
Why you gotta give me booty snatchers? That's it.
Booty snatchers.
All right, so
Booty juice.
you just wanted me to say booty snatchers, didn't you?
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. So Booty Snatchers, thank you, gave us a 5-star review. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It says, top-notch show with 3 different sides of FF. Keep it up, guys. Thank you
Yes.
very much, Booty Snatchers.
Man, I could've
I'll say
did
it one
that
more time.
one.
Booty
That
Snatchers.
Yes.
We should have done that one.
so-
We should have given you that one.
Yeah, we should have. Next time we'll give you the short one, CJ.
I
But
should have got me some booty juice. That's what.
oh man.
Yeah.
Tropic
Give them that butt
Thunder.
water. That'll work out.
I could watch Tropic Thunder right now. Anyway, side conversation. Yeah.
Right now.
So as you can see, we greatly appreciate the feedback and the reviews. We happily read them on the show. Give you guys shout outs. They can be very long, like we love the big long ones, like Big Al gave us. The short ones are greatly
crazy.
appreciated too. So yeah, thank you, CJ. So let's go ahead and move on to our topic of the day, which is our wide receivers part 1. So we're going through our number 1 fantasy receivers. To us, number ones, we talk standard is a 12-team league. So we're going through our top 12 consensus rankings at the wide receiver position. So we are going to start at the top, which is universally the consensus number 1. Yet again, this year, he is number 1 on all 3 of our boards. That is the one and only Antonio Brown, who has moved up. I mean, a number of these wide receivers have moved up about a spot in their average draft position since we did this last time. A lot of that having to do with Ezekiel Elliott moving down into the second rounds. But yeah, he's moved up a spot to the 3rd pick overall. CJ, I'm going to throw this to you because you love you some Antonio Brown. So talk to me about Antonio.
Antonio Brown. He is number 1 on this list and number 1 in my heart. Oh my gosh, he's so talented. He's so good. I love me some Antonio Brown. If there could ever be a downside to Antonio Brown, it's not even his fault. That's how this downside is not really. I don't even know why it can even touch him because he can't throw himself the ball. That's the only thing. Ben Roethlisberger, he's not a young pup like he used to be. He's been having this little injury thing going on with him the last couple of years, and then he's been playing like Drew Brees away from the house. He's not that good. So, that's my only knock on Antonio Brown is that the consistency at the quarterback position. But outside of that, everything on the field, Antonio Brown is amazing, and he's the number 1 receiver.
Didn't quite reach that 20 touchdowns that you made a bet on this time last year.
Didn't, but it was all Ben Roethlisberger's fault, man.
That's true.
It's all him.
Home road splits, Ben Roethlisberger missing some time. Yeah, it adds up, I guess. I still think it was a long shot. But, Jason, what are your thoughts, bud?
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Antonio Brown is currently the best receiver in football. He's got speed. He can run. He's one of the crispest route runners in the league right now. He's on a really, really good offensive team. If Roethlisberger was more consistent with his home road splits, this wouldn't be as big of an issue. His numbers would be even gaudier. But overall, this is number one guy in football. He's the most consistent, and you can't go wrong picking him up.
Yep, and one thing I want to point out, even with this being the case, a lot of people are worried. Again, Martavis Bryant, there's this freak athlete who's on the other side who's going to take all these targets and touches away. Well, if we look back historically, and I've made this debate many a time, if you look at the stats, Antonio Brown is actually better by, I think it was somewhere between 4 and 6 points a game when Martavis Bryant is on the field, because they can't rotate the entire defense Antonio Brown's way anymore. They have to worry about the running game with Le'Veon Bell. They have to worry about Martavis Bryant, who is a massive deep threat. So Antonio Brown actually is better on a per-game basis on average when Martavis Bryant is there. So don't be scared of that. That is good news. Yes, he is the number one receiver in fantasy. I mean, he had what some would say is even a down year last year, and he still had 106 receptions, just under 1,300 yards, and 12 touchdowns. I will take that all day, every day. And this is a Ravens fan saying this about a Steelers player. So, I mean, you got to throw that loyalty out the window with fantasy football sometimes. I mean, he is amazing. And, you know, I took him as my number one overall pick in a number of leagues last year. So, yeah, Antonio Brown, number one receiver in fantasy. Not much point in staying here because that is the case pretty much universally. Let's move on to our next guy, Odell Beckham Jr. Now, he is our number 2 consensus. He has moved up to the number 2. He was number 3 on ADP last time we did this, and both of you guys have kept him at your number 2 spot. He is number 3 for me. Talk to me about Odell Beckham Jr., and I believe we can actually get through this in a timely manner because Ryan is not here. So, Jason, I'm going to throw this to you first, actually.
Odell Beckham Jr. is in a really nice situation right now because he is hitting his stride in that offense, and they've added another big gun to go to, a couple of big guns actually, but in Brandon Marshall. I think Brandon Marshall is going to be kind of the same kind of effect on Odell Beckham Jr. as Bryant has for Brown over in Pittsburgh. He's going to draw some of that coverage away. You got Sterling Shepard they have to deal with now also, and you got Evan Ingram they're going to have to deal with all over the field. So as we've mentioned in the past, this New York Giants team is wide open. You know, it's kind of a pick your poison type of a situation. Who are you going to cover? Who's more dangerous? And I think Beckham is going to benefit from that. He's going to get more opportunity to catch the ball down the field and score.
I agree with Jason, man. I agree with that.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, Odell Beckham Jr.
Keep this show moving, baby. Come on, we got so much stuff to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but you know, this is the good stuff. This is the analysis. This is what everybody tuned in for.
As long as he stays away from the kicking nets, he'll be fine.
You know what?
Yeah, as long as he stays away from the kicking nets, I'm okay. That was getting really old very fast. But yeah, no, this is a guy who, if Ryan was here, he would read you 25 minutes worth of stats. No, please don't. I don't want to get down that road. But you know, he has been a phenomenal player his first 3 years. He played all 16 games last year, which was great. Had over 100 receptions. He had 1,367 yards. He had 10 touchdowns. He actually was lower on the touchdowns, but that has to do with most people say Eli Manning having kind of a tough year last year. Look, this year he is surrounded by talent, and that talent is going to draw coverage away from Odell. I honestly am not concerned about that taking away from his overall production. I think he's going to finish just as well as he did in years past. I mean, this is a guy that's averaging somewhere around 12 touchdowns a year and 1,300 yards and change. I mean, that's an amazing stat line. And, you know, yes, Brandon Marshall is there. Brandon Marshall is a big red zone threat. Evan Ingram profiles as much more as obviously more of a wide receiver than a blocking tight end, and he's going to be a massive red zone weapon as well. Sterling Shepard, a red zone weapon. So I get the concerns here that some people are expressing. I know I've seen some lists and some analysts that are saying how they have Odell Beckham Jr. as their number 4, number 5 wide receiver. I think that's ludicrous because he is the main target in that offense. He's the first read. I think he still ends the season right around this stat line, even with all these other weapons there. I think the main beneficiary to all these weapons is Eli Manning. I don't think it's a negative to Odell Beckham. Anything you guys want to add before we move on?
Nope.
Yeah, that sums it up. All right. Let's move on to our number 3 guy, which, you know, we always talk about in most fantasy shows, most podcasts, most websites, most analysts. They talk, there's the big 3. there's Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones. That's your big three fantasy wide receivers, and they are in a tier all of their own. Well, here on the Fantasy Football Fanatics, we throw a fourth name into that hat, and we have at our number 3 wide receiver is Jordy Nelson, Green Bay Packers. I have him as my number 2. Jason at 3, CJ at 4, so I guess CJ, you fall more in line with the norm, but still, right in that zone. He is going on average as the 6th quarterback off the board, however, at the end of the first round. That's amazing value to me. I'll start off by saying, guys, it's Jordy freaking Nelson. Every year that he has been healthy and Aaron Rodgers has been healthy, he has been a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. He has been just a monster whenever this works out. Yes, injuries have been a problem in the past, but he is in an offense which throws the ball more in the red zone and especially in the 10 zone than any other team in the league by a multiple of about 3. It is an insane workload, and this is a guy who is Aaron Rodgers' number 1 go-to target. He is the guy in Green Bay, and that is the guy you want on your team. Look, there's a reason why why Aaron Rodgers is the number 1 quarterback taken off the board, and if you want that amazing efficiency, why would you not want his number 1 target? He is primed to have another great year, and yes, I get the argument. He's going to be 32 years old. Oh no, what is we going to do? The sky is falling. Well, if you actually look at the stats, it's pretty even split between players who have a good and a bad 2000. I cannot talk. I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. It's a pretty even split between players who have a good and a bad 32nd year season. And the main deciding factor between these two, as I look down the list, is that basically every single one of them that had a good year 32 season, they had very good quarterbacks. I don't think it gets much better than Aaron Rodgers. So I am all on board for Jordy Nelson. I believe in him for one more year in 2017 for sure. We have not seen the regression happen yet, and I don't think that this is the year that it starts. And if it does start, he's still in such position in an offense with a volume and a quality target from a quarterback that I think that he overcomes, and he still gives you a pretty decent return. And guys, if you're getting him at the back of the first, maybe top of the second, why is it not worth the risk? It's a guy that we all have in our top 4 at the position. So Jordy Nelson, he is a definite steal for me at that point, and a guy that I'm definitely targeting in my leagues.
Yeah, the thing about Jordy Nelson being a number 3 with us is that, like you said, Julio Jones is usually in that number 3 position. He's considered one of the top 3. But you know what? He's extremely inconsistent, as we've already mentioned. We'll talk about him more in a minute, so I won't belabor that fact. But Jordy Nelson is the opposite of that. He is always consistent. He's always there. He's always getting yards. He's always getting touchdowns. He's, as you said, the top target for the top quarterback in the league. So all those things, you've got to look at him as being a top 5 or a top 3, as we've got him wide receiver.
Yep.
1, he's a coming back player of the year for me.
Yep.
He's phenomenal talent out there. His numbers are ridiculous. And 2, he got Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, and he is the guy in that offense. Adding that up, that's why I got Jordy Nelson where I have him, and I actually moved him up, and we're going to get to a guy that I pushed back in front of him, but Jordy Nelson is an absolute beast, and if you can get him where Griffin said where you normally going, that is absolute steal, and I would be giddy if I could say that right here. If in the first round, that's where I get him.
He led the entire NFL in receiving touchdowns last year. He had 14 receiving touchdowns. The next highest was 12, and that was our number 1, Antonio Brown, just saying. There are a couple of people, but Antonio Brown, the biggest name. So, Jordy Nelson, a guy that we are taking higher than the norm, and I'm completely comfortable with it. Let's move on to our number 4 wide receiver, who is the aforementioned Julio Jones. Now, I'm actually the lowest, and I have him at 6, which I know, gasp, oh, how, why, we'll get there. Jason, you are at 5. Both of us have moved him down since the last time we did this. CJ standing firm at number 3, so I'm going to throw this to you, CJ. Why does Julio Jones still deserve to be a top 3, or at the very least considered that top tier of wide receiver?
Well, you gotta go into it last season and hope that what you saw, and why I believe everybody has him pumped up, is what you saw in the playoffs. Absolutely, he was absolutely beats in the playoffs. We talked about his numbers during the season. You take out that crazy game, that 300 yards out. It's different. It's different from what the rest of his years is doing. And Jason has a good argument saying that he's never really hurt and he's always inconsistent. And it's factual, and you see the stats. I'm looking at this going into this year that, hey, listen, I'm gonna go be on the optimism side, drink that Griffin and Jason Kool-Aid, hope that he plays the full season. You got a new offensive coordinator in there. You still got stability with the quarterback position. Still got the nucleus of a great offense there, and now you start to get those red zone touchdowns and get those up since he's supposed to be the focal point there. I think all that is great, and I think that's going to be great for Julio, and that would be great for his numbers, and he can be able to put up numbers that justify him to be in that top 3 conversation when it comes to wide receivers. And the reason why I say justify is because he's not always healthy. So if he does stay healthy and puts that up this year, we can start having a legit argument, because I don't think you can put him number 1 if he doesn't put up the numbers that Antonio Brown. He's not on the field like Antonio Brown is for you week after week. You can't compare the two, and you can't even compare Odell too, because Odell is there. Once again, that's why he's lower where he is. So if he stays healthy, I think this is a good year, and I think you have an argument going into next year.
I'm confused as to why it's our Kool-Aid, because I'm not high.
I was going to say, wait, what?
But you got to do that. That's optimistic. Like, well, if he does this, that's you guys. That's yours.
You're talking about just our optimistic approach. I was going to say, we're not drinking any Kool-Aid on Julio Jones. We are much lower than the norm.
I am not even partaking in that Kool-Aid.
The Spaniard Kool-Aid.
Wow.
Yeah. I will kill you, CJ. So.
Oh, man.
It's just because his name is Julio, isn't it? Julio Jones is extremely talented. We've seen him explode for ridiculous amounts of yardage and points for games. But the problem is that does not happen all year. He'll have one great game, and then he'll disappear. And then he'll have one amazing game, and he'll disappear. And have a pretty good game, and he'll disappear again. And that's my problem with him, is I need him every week. If I'm going to draft him in the first round as one of the top 5 guys off the board, I need him to be that guy every single week. And so far in his career, he has not been that guy every single week. He's been that guy every now and then. Then he's been hurt, or he'll just disappear, or he'll be as Griffin has mentioned several times, he'll be a distraction for other targets and things of that nature. Now, the one ray of sunshine, drinking CJ's Kool-Aid, I guess, is that with a new offensive coordinator in town, and they're talking about trying to get him more red zone touches and more touchdowns and things of that nature. That's good for his proficiency throughout the season. So that could raise his efficiency, and that could raise his points, and that could raise him up into the top 2 if he's able to do that. Because he, as I have mentioned many, many times, in my opinion, he is the best one-on-one wide receiver. You put him one-on-one on an island by himself, he's coming down with the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, you guys have both made a lot of points that I always make, so I won't harp on it too much. Like Jason was just saying, Julio Jones is like the prototypical number 1 receiver. Side speed, frame, everything, hands, wingspan, the works. He is an amazing wide receiver, an amazing weapon, great fantasy asset. But the thing is, he is, as we've said, the most boom-bust type player that we have in our rankings. I'd say our next most boom bust guy is who we have all the way down at number 8, which was Des Bryant, because he's kind of touchdown dependent. I mean, and CJ brought this up. This is a point that I made after crunching the numbers earlier in the offseason. If you take away that 300-yard, 1-touchdown game that he had and just gave him his average throughout the season in that game in its place, he didn't even finish as a wide receiver 1 for fantasy. So that is my concern, which is why I have him at 6 right now. New offensive coordinators coming in. Changing of the offense could be a step down. Look, he's done it in the past with different coordinators. I still believe in Julio Jones. And, I'm also hearing all this news. Of course, they're saying, oh, well, look, we're working him in more in the red zone, which is great. So, he's averaged around 6 touchdowns in his career. He had one in his sophomore year, a magical year where he got 10. I have him getting back to 8 touchdowns this year, getting about 1,350 yards. So, I mean, That just is where he lands. Could he outperform that? Absolutely. But, I mean, I have to see it. And the offensive coordinator coming in and how boom-bust he was last year, the way he was used as a diversion a number of times last year, it's all things that concern me for fantasy, because if he's not getting catches, he's not recording stats, he's not helping you for fantasy. That's the only concern here. Is he amazing? Absolutely. Does he deserve to be in this tier? Absolutely. Is there a risk involved with Julio Jones? Always, because he's always banged up. He's always playing through some sort of injury, and that's just the risk you take when you draft Julio Jones, who is going as the number 3 wide receiver off the board as the 5th pick in the first round. Just saying. All right, so let's move on to our number 5 wide receiver, who is Mike Evans, who we are also down on as a show. Both Julio Jones and Mike Evans have dropped in our consensus rankings since we did this back in May. I have dropped him down to 7. CJ 5, Jason 4, and we've all dropped him. He's going as the number 4, as the 8th pick in the first round. Jason, you are the highest, so let's start with you. You moved him down one spot from 3 to 4. You're the highest. Tell me about Mike Evans.
Well, the only reason I dropped him down a spot is because I truly do believe in Jordy Nelson, and I think he's going to be, and like I said, I love the whole situation with Jordy, his quarterback, everything. With Mike Evans, he is a freak athlete. The guy is amazing. He's the number one target for that offense. I really do like his situation, and I need to see more from Jameis Winston, which is why he's not up in the top 3 anymore. However, I do think we are going to see that, because Winston has more weapons to use this year than he's ever really had before, and I think that Mike Evans is going to benefit from that, because they can't just key on him anymore. They got to key on the whole offense, especially when Doug Martin gets back into the lineup. So this is a really good year for Mike Evans. I think he's going to do very, very well.
CJ?
Yeah, I like Mike Evans, man. I like what he's been doing in the postseason. I've been following them, man, in the offseason training camp. I like what's been going on there. I like them. The reason why I moved them down, because I don't think they're up there on the caliber of Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson. So that's why Jordy went up. I think they have the potential, and I think that this year we're going to see a different growth out of Jameis, and he's about to be a more mature and more dependable fantasy quarterback. So with that, I see Mike Evans reaping the benefits from that, and the growth and the maturity level going on with Winston. So I like everything that's going on there in Tampa, and I'm just waiting to see everything. What I see them having a good year this year.
Yeah, I'm the lowest, and the reason is a couple of key factors to me. Jameis Winston, not the best quarterback in the league yet. I know he could get there. He's still very young, but he averaged an 86.1 passer rating. I mean, he threw for barely 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, so not the highest in any one of those categories, and they've done nothing but add. So I love Jameis Winston this season a lot more, as we talked about on our quarterback show, but, Deshaun Jackson, he's going to take targets, he's going to take touchdowns. O.J. Howard coming in, even more reports are coming out that they're going to use him primarily as a blocker to begin with, but he's still going to take targets. Chris Godwin, who they drafted, who I loved. I thought he was the sleeper pick at wide receiver. Somehow fell to them in the 3rd round. I mean, I think he's going to be huge for them down the line. They have a number of pass-catching backs. And Mike Evans, he is really a volume play. He has been incredibly productive on volume because he had 96 receptions last year. He had 96 catches on 175 targets. That is horrifically bad, very low, bad quality of target. I know he catches anything that's around him, but the targets have to be catchable. 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. Amazing. But I expect the targets to go down with all these additional weapons, which tells me that the yards and the touchdowns are probably going to drop as well, because it's going to get spread out more. I think he's still going to easily draw the majority of the coverage, so I think that they're going to be throwing away from him more, which is my concern here. Is Mike Evans an amazing freak athlete? Absolutely. But, I mean, it's a numbers game, and I'm concerned because, again, if it takes you 175 targets to have 90-some receptions, that's a concern for me, because there are plenty of players out there, and we did an exercise in this completion percentage a couple months ago, and we put Mike Evans up against a number of wide receiver 2s and 3s, and we were all just like, oh, those 2s and 3s sound like much surer things, not knowing who the player was. So, yeah,
I believe we chose Jordy Nelson, didn't we, in that exercise?
It was Jordy.
That was a different exercise, but yeah, there was another one too that we pointed out. Yeah, we did another one back in May. So I'm just saying it's a concern. But it's volume, and if he's not getting the volume, I worry about his upside. But look, I still have him at 7. I'm still taking him high. We all have him as a top tier quarterback or wide receiver. Why do I keep doing that? Top tier wide receiver. So let's move on. At number 6, we have, this may shock some folks, Michael Thomas, who has moved up for us. Michael Thomas was our number 7 wide receiver, which felt high last time. Now he's our number 6. He is my number 5, both of yours, number 6 wide receiver. Currently going as the number 7 wide receiver off the board as the 4th pick in the second round. So, guys, Michael Thomas, I mean, it's hard to find a reason not to like Michael Thomas. The only thing that people ever have going against them here is everyone's like, oh, well, he sophomore slump. I mean, I get that, but I mean, guys, come on. He had an amazing amount of production in his rookie year last year, and his main competition for targets, Brandon Cooks, is now gone. What are you guys' thoughts on Michael Thomas? I mean, I expect him to take a massive step forward. I think he's going to get an uptick in volume, more touchdowns. I mean, even as a rookie, he played in 15 games, 1,137 yards, 9 touchdowns. The number 1 target for Drew Brees, who is a very frequent 5,000-yard passer. What are you guys' thoughts?
If there's a negative to say about Thomas, other than the obligatory sophomore slump, it would be that now defenses are not going to be fooled and are not going to know, or are going to know to key on him. They're going to know to double him. They're going to know to follow him around. Now he's going to be the number 1 target there, though. That's the thing. He's going to be the guy. You got Ted Ginn Jr. there, who's in the twilight of his career, still a very good speedster. But Michael Thomas is going to be the guy in New Orleans. So I definitely agree with you. I think he's going to take a step forward. I think he's going to get targets. He's going to have good production just like he did. And my goodness, you saw what he did in his rookie season. He didn't even play every single game, and he had a fantastic season. So, yeah, be concerned that maybe he'll get targeted, or maybe he'll get covered more often. But I don't think it's going to bother him too much, especially with that quarterback back there slinging the ball, best throwing quarterback in the league. So, yeah, I definitely think Michael Thomas is going to be very, very good this year.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys were saying, man. My reason why I have him where I got him, he's connected to Drew Brees. I know Drew Brees likes to sling that thing, man. So I know he's going to get a lot of those targets because he had a great rookie showing, and I believe that his sophomore year is going to be another great year and another good year for fantasy. So that's why I have him high as I have.
I mean, this guy, as we've made this argument in the past, I just wanted to bring it back up. He is literally the size and build of Marcus Colston, who was the longtime, middle of the field, outside red zone receiver there in New Orleans. And you can't really use this as a valid argument. I just thought it was interesting to bring it up because going from rookie to sophomore year, Marcus Colston got an additional 200 yards receiving and about an additional 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, if that comes to be the case for Michael Thomas here, that's huge. Just saying. So I'm not projecting that entire increase, but I'm projecting him to do even better than he did last year. So, I mean, I'm just very, very high on Michael Thomas. I have him getting about 1,258 yards and 10 touchdowns, so close to that increase, but not quite there. I mean, I think that's very, very obtainable. So I like him a lot.
In that offense, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that stats him out for me as my number 5 wide receiver for the season in standard league. So, I mean, that's huge. So, and again, this is a guy that you can get in the middle of the second round. So, I mean, hey, awesome value if you guys want to take an early running back or go wide receiver. I don't necessarily recommend that, but some people do. So, do what you're going to do. But Michael Thomas, a great value, and we all think he takes another step forward this year, especially with the main threat for targets being gone. Number 7 on our list is A.J. Green. A.J. Green, he's dropped in the rankings from us. He was our number 6 wide receiver. He has now dropped down to our number 7. Let me see here. A.J. Green, I am the highest at 4. He's actually even gone up for me since last time. That's kind of surprising. CJ, you've kept him the same at number 9. Jason, you have dropped him down to number 7. He is currently going as the number 5 wide receiver off the board as the 10th pick in the first round, so more in line with where I am taking him. I mean, we all know the upside to A.J. Green. It's something that we talk about a lot. This guy was on fire. Before he went down, he was on pace. He was a top 3 receiver last year for fantasy, and that was with only having 4 touchdowns. Andy Dalton had a very bad year in the red zone last year. So, I mean, if you just project out those numbers, Andy Dalton having another bad year with touchdowns again going into this year, he very easily finishes right around where I have him. He had 964 yards in he played 10 games. So, I mean, there you go. Give him another 6. I mean, only imagine where he gets to. So, and I've done all the math pointing that out before, and don't want to go down that road again. He stats out amazingly. I see no reason that it does not repeat. They brought in another speed threat to help stretch the field and help him do some more intermediate underneath stuff, draw coverage away from him. They obviously brought in Joe Mixon, which we talked about before, which they're going to have to respect the run game. So, the offensive line is garbage, but all these things are going to make them not able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback or roll all the coverage A.J. Green's way. I love A.J. Green as a good bounce-back candidate this season. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'm a little... go ahead, Jason.
Okay, I'm high on A.J. Green. I like A.J. Green. He is one of the more talented guys. And if you've been watching preseason, he's lighting it up right now. Okay, he's getting targets. He's catching the ball all over the place. He looks very spry. My only problem, injuries. That's something I'm watching out for. And also, like you mentioned, the offensive line being crap is going to be a thing. That is going to be a problem. And I mean, getting the ball to A.J. Green is going to be a little bit more difficult. So that's the only reason I dropped him a spot. I still think he's a top 10 wide receiver easily as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, I'm a little up and down with A.J. Green. That's why I got him at 9. I do recognize the talent. I'm not going to disrespect that. But a lot of people will say the talent that they brought in is going to be able to be beneficial for him and be able to help him out. But I don't know. I think these talents coming in, man, is definitely going to take away targets from him. And I see A.J. Green probably be a boom or bust guy, to be honest, man, just because they get this running game going. That's going to be good. There's going to be targets there. If Eifert gets right, that's going to be touchdowns. And we know that he's a touchdown boomer bust guy himself when it goes to there. And then if the boy John Ross starts doing his thing, that could be that. So maybe I'm thinking a little bit too much because him and Andy Dalton do have a good relationship on the field. But I don't know. AJ Green got to be at the right spot and the right price for me to be able to draft him, and I'm a little up and down with him.
Let me throw a stat at you, CJ, and see if it sways your opinion at all. AJ Green, who got injured right away in week 11, so he played 10 games. He's still missing 6 games out of the season, led the team in receptions and yardage, and was only 6 targets behind the guy who led them, Brandon LaFell. I mean, that's a massive target share of the offense. Does that sway you or give you any comfort there at all?
I understand that, and I saw that, but I remember watching the Bengals play. They struggled a lot, so I can understand all those targets going in because there's other pass catchers were so-so. And I mean, you mentioned Brandon LaFell. Brandon LaFell, this dude had trash cans for hands a couple years ago, and now he's second on the list. So I mean, I understand your stat. I can see where you're going. But I did watch this team last year, and they struggled across the board a lot. So
definitely a down year for the offense as a whole, and a lot of that was attributed to the bad offensive line. But now that they have all these other weapons, that's why I kind of I'm not wild about Andy Dalton, but I have more faith in it because they have to respect all these different weapons running all over the field. And this is a team that I watch extensively, being an AFC North rival. So to each their own. But I'm very comfortable with AJ Green going forward. Yes, injuries are a concern, but last year it was a hamstring injury, and he could have come back at the end of the year, but they said why risk it because they were already mathematically eliminated. So they didn't want to risk a long-term injury for their star wide receiver. So I'm honestly not that concerned. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to our number 8 wide receiver, who is Dez Bryant, Dallas Cowboys. We have him at number 8 overall, which is where he's going in average draft position as the 7th pick in the 2nd round. I have him at 9. I dropped him to 9. Jason, you moved him up to 9. CJ staying firm at 6. So, CJ, let's throw this to you. Dallas Cowboy, division rival. Talk to me about Dez Bryant.
Yeah, Des Bryant. The reason I got him there is because I see the Dallas Cowboys are going to be relying on Dak a lot, especially with this pending suspension. If it goes the first 6 games, or even towards the middle of the season or later in the season, I see that he's going to need somebody to rely on. Des Bryant is probably going to be that guy. He's not going to have that security blanket in Zeke with those suspension games, so he's going to throw the ball to him. I can see that. I mean, Dez getting involved a lot more like they were coming on towards last year. So I'm looking at the upside with that and thinking that Dez can probably get some more numbers with the Zeke thing going down if it does when it does.
Jason, you gave him a massive bump. You went from 13 to 9 here. I mean, massive in the grand scheme of higher level players. So, what are your thoughts here? What swayed your opinion?
Yeah, I did. I did give him a massive bump. And anyone that's been listening to the show for any length of time knows I'm not a big Des Bryant fan. Very boom-bust player. I hate that. Touchdown dependent. I hate that. However, I think with Dak Prescott's second year, we did see at the end of the season, Dez and Dak started to get a rapport with each other, and he started looking for Dez more often. The numbers started to rise, and we started to see Des Bryant start to shine a little bit. I think that's going to continue on into this year and just get stronger, especially with the fact, as TJ already mentioned, they're not going to be able to rely necessarily on Ezekiel Elliott. Now, they're still going to have a good running game. Okay, I don't want people to think, well, no Ezekiel Elliott, the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to run the ball as much as they were. I got news for you. They are going to run the ball.
We're hearing that it's going to be a possible committee situation as well. So, I mean, there might not be that one go-to guy to get. A lot of people are pointing at Darren McFadden, but might not be the case. Just a heads up. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Absolutely. That's all right. Absolutely. I mean, you got the best line in football. You use it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, they're going to run the ball. However, I think that, like I said, the maturation of Dak Prescott and the congealing of their abilities together, Dak and Dez, I think is going to be a really nice complement to that run game. So I think Dez might actually get some more yardage this year than what he's normally used to getting.
I like that word, congealing.
I was very high on Dez Bryant last year. I thought that everything was pointing upwards. Tony Romo was back and looking healthy. He was looking healthy as well. I had faith that he could get not back to his 1,300 yards and 16 touchdowns numbers, but somewhere around maybe 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns, which is from 2012 to 2014. That would be considered a down year for him. That's how insanely good he was for that 3-year stretch. But injuries again plagued him, so it took him a while to get back and then build a rapport with Dak Prescott. And look, I've been well documented on the show for saying that I am not a big Dak Prescott fan for the second year for a lot of reasons. I don't like his opportunity. The sophomore slump is scary. The offensive line took some hits. And now that Ezekiel Elliott is going to be missing for a period of time throughout the season, I mean, this team I'm already saying was going to be playing from behind a lot because the defense, they lost so many starters on the defense. And I don't know if Dak Prescott has the ability to air it out that much. They're going to be playing from behind a lot more, where last year they were playing their game. They got the lead, they ran the clock out, they controlled time of possession. That's what they did. And they're not going to be able to do that as much this year. So I think that, a beneficiary to that, kind of like we were saying, is going to be Des Bryant, because if they're playing from behind, they're going to have to throw the ball more. They're not going to have as good of a running game to lean on. Des Bryant is your number one wide receiver, and he is a freaking amazing athlete. You just have to use him more frequently because he has been very boom-bust lately, very touchdown-dependent. But if he can get back to getting over 1,000 yards and closer to double-digit touchdowns, which, is definitely obtainable, then, he easily finishes as a wide receiver 1 for us. Where do I have him in my rankings? Des Bryant, I have him getting just over 1,000 yards and getting up 10 to 11 touchdowns. So, lands him right about where I have him. So, I'm being optimistic there, I admit, but I think it's obtainable, especially with the game script they're going to be playing with. So, I like Des Bryant. I think that this is a good turnaround year for him. I don't know if he gets back to his 2012 to 2014 stretch this season, but I think with going into maybe 2018, another year with Dak Prescott, them having a rapport, I could easily see us having a conversation like that with our rankings going into next season. So, do we all agree? Ready to move on?
Let's do it.
All right, number 9, we have a guy who I'm really surprised we have this high, but I think a lot of us haven't taken the concerns of Andrew Luck into account yet, and that is T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton, I have moved up to 8. I had him at 9. Same thing with Jason, from 9 to 8. CJ staying firm at 10. He's currently going as the number 10, so we're barely high on him as a show. He's going at the back of the second round as the 12th pick. Jason, I'm going to throw this to you. Your thoughts on T.Y. Hilton?
T.Y. Hilton's been very consistently a top receiver. I mean, he's just always there. He's always getting his yards. I really like him. I like Andrew Luck. I don't think Andrew Luck is going to be out as long as some people are concerned with. I know they're saying 6 weeks.
No.
I just don't think he's going to be out that long. I mean, he started earlier with his recovery on the surgery and everything. That's good. He's going to get an opportunity. He may play a bit hobbled at the beginning of the season, but I think he's still going to be there, and I think T.Y. Hilton's still going to be his favorite target.
I agree.
I think the talent of T.Y. Hilton is absolutely amazing. It's only concerns is the Andrew Luck's health. Is he going to be there at the beginning of the season, or how late is he going to be able to come on? And is he going to have the full throwing motion, all power there, and be able to create space like he normally does with him and T.Y.? Could they be able to make that magic? All that stuff is concerning, and all that stuff is legit on you being a little cautious on picking up T.Y. So that's just me. But overall talent, he's a great wide receiver. It's just you're projecting that this is Andrew Luck, his quarterback, not Tolzien being his quarterback.
Did you guys know that Andrew Luck was the second leading rusher on that team last year? By a sizable margin.
It does not surprise me.
Yeah, he had like double the yardage of Robert Turbin. So that's kind of insane. Sorry, side note. T.Y. Hilton, like we said, he has been sneaky good for a very long time. He has always been a massive producer in the yardage game. I mean, 1,448 yards last year. Holy crap, that's good. His biggest knock is a lot like players like Julio Jones. He's not heavily featured in the red zone. I mean, he's in his career, his high has been 7, which he's only reached twice in his 5 years. He has been he's averaging like 6 touchdowns a year is basically what it's at. So, yes, there's concerns with Andrew Luck, but look, the general manager, Chris Ballard, however you say his name, he came out and he said that, look, we're not putting him on the PUP. He's not going on the short-term IR. He is going to play. So that's a vote of confidence to me because they don't want to wait 6 weeks to activate him. It could be week 1. It could be week 2. I don't think it'd be any later than week 3 if he misses time at all. And so, I mean, if that's the case, I don't really change my projection on T.Y. Hilton because I think a healthy Andrew Luck with that offensive line, that run game, the additions they made in the pass-catching corps, and the potentially upgrades at tight end, obviously getting rid of some dead weight. Not killing. Good. I didn't say that. Getting rid of some dead weight there.
It's very cutthroat. It's very cutthroat out there.
I know, right?
Oh, you said cutthroat?
Look, we talked about this a lot when we did our quarterbacks. Andrew Luck has not been right since the 2014 season. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. And by the way, 2014, he finished as the quarterback 1, just saying. So, I mean, if he gets back and he's healthy and this whole thing gets rolling, he knows this offense, I'm not concerned about him missing time. He already has the rapport with T.Y. Hilton. I'm still high on him. I'm still a believer. I mean, if Andrew Luck misses a sizable chunk of time, I obviously would knock him down a couple spots. But, I mean, T.Y. Hilton, the floor doesn't get much higher than what T.Y. Hilton gets you because he gets you so many yards week to week. The touchdowns are kind of that cherry on top, which gives you a much better performance that you hope to see from your wide receiver 1. So that's the only concern here, which is why we have him towards the back of our wide receiver 1s and not much higher because of the red zone production. Let's move on to our number 10 wide receiver, which is Doug Baldwin. Now, Doug Baldwin... Yes, I'm very low on, and it's for no reason other than the people that I have ahead of him. I just have statted out that way because I have him down at 16, which I even admit right now that feels low. And I'm going to have to go back and look at my rankings and see exactly why I have him landing there. CJ, you have him all the way up at 7. Jason splitting the difference kind of at 10. I'm going to throw this to you, CJ. You're the highest. He's currently going as the 12th off the board as the 4th pick in the 3rd round. So even with all this being said, we are kind of high on him as a show per average. So CJ, take it away.
As an only knock on Doug Baldwin you can have recently is just the health of Russell Wilson. I mean, when him and Russell are on, they're on. This dude puts up numbers very consistently, and he's a guy I've been looking at for a couple years now. Go like, why have I not picked up Doug Baldwin? Like, why am I not, paying this man the respect that he deserves? Because he's been earning it. The man's been putting up numbers season after season after season, and I'm impressed, and I'm a believer now in Doug Baldwin. I might be coming on too late, but I'm a believer now. I see there in my ways, and I'm all in on Doug Baldwin. As long as Russell Wilson is healthy and he's able to be elusive and be in the backfield, Doug Baldwin is a good pickup for you, and I respect his game.
Jason?
I watch this dude play twice a year at least, and I can tell you he is. What I like about him, and one of the things I'm kind of shocked that you don't like him as much as we do, Griffin, he reminds me very much of a Steve Smith type of a player. He's a scrappy, just a mean receiver who gets his yardage no matter what. He's always there. He's reliable. He's definitely in that kind of mold, and he is the number one target in that offense. Now, that's going to change. I don't know if it's going to change necessarily, but I do fear that some of his targets will go other places. I think Jimmy Graham is going to have a step-up type of a year. There's some other receivers on this team that need to step up and are going to get more production, become more of a passing offense than they've been in the past. Not to say that they're going to be a pass-first offense. They'll always be a run-first offense, in my opinion. But Doug Baldwin is that number one target, So he's going to get the volume, he's going to get touches, and he's very, very good after the catch. So I see Doug Baldwin having another really nice year this year.
Yeah, I mean, look, Doug Baldwin last year, he had 1,128 yards and 7 touchdowns. Decent, that's fine. I was not very high on Doug Baldwin going into 2016 because if you break down his 2015, where he was the number one receiver for the second half of the year last year, that was a pace that I did not believe was sustainable, and I turned out to be right. But bottom line, I am low on him. I'm looking at my stats, and I mean, it's just where he lands. He's very. I could easily, with a slight bump, he could easily move up 1 to 2 spots for me. And I have him basically finishing right around what he had last year. I can't project him for much higher than this for what you've already said, Jason. I'm worried. I think Jimmy Graham is by far their main red zone weapon. They're going to be targeting him the most in the passing game when they reach the red zone. I think Doug Baldwin's scoring opportunities happen from outside the 20, especially when you get inside the 10. It's going to be Jimmy Graham. And this little guy that we've talked about quite a few times, Eddie Lacy, they are very committed to trying to upgrade their rushing game, especially their red zone power running system. So I'm just worried about the touchdowns to go around because Doug Baldwin is a guy who over his career has had 4, 3, 5, 3, 14, and 7 touchdowns in each of his seasons. Obviously, one of those a big outlier. So if you go back to his average on his career, he's actually closer to about 4 to 5 touchdowns. So that's concerning. I think he has taken that next step. I don't think he's that player anymore. I think this offense suits him, and he's good at it. And him and Russell Wilson have a rapport, which is why I have him getting around what he did last year. I just think with all these additions around him, I just don't know if there's enough volume for him to do considerably better than he did last year. So this is just where he lands with my statistical projection for him. I do like Doug Baldwin. I really do. I don't like the fact that he's this low, but it's just the way it breaks. I'm going to have to maybe tweak my rankings and move him up a couple spots. But as of right now, recording this on August 18th, that's where he is for me. So anything you guys want to add, or you want to move on?
Moving on.
Moving on. 2 more guys to get to. Number 11, we have Allen Robinson, Jacksonville Jaguars. I have not budged on him. I still have him at 10. CJ has not budged on him. You have him at 12. Jason, you have moved him up. You have him now at 13. So, Jason, you've moved him up, so let's start with you. What's changed for you? Because I think the narrative for Allen Robinson has been set. Because, in fact, we're high on him as a show. Because he's currently going as the 20th quarterback off the board, as the 9th pick in the 4th round. Since we recorded last, he's actually dropped a full round in ADP and moved down 5 spots as a wide receiver. So what are your thoughts here?
Well, I think the reason he's moved down is everyone's watching this Blake Bortles stuff go on and freaking out about that, and so he's dropping. And I get that. I understand that. But I think that I think this is just Blake Bortles getting his feet under him and getting back to par. I think that he's got a couple more preseason games to get right. I don't think that I'm going to overreact to the fact that he's not playing perfectly right now. And by the way, as we've already mentioned earlier in the show, Allen Robinson was targeted a lot in that first half. That means he wants to get the ball to his best receiver. And that is exactly what we should expect. It's going to continue. Even if Bortles is not the guy throwing the ball down the field, whoever is, Robinson's going to be their number one target.
Easily.
And he is very, very good. So in my mind, he definitely rose up into the ones, and we didn't have him in the ones the last time we did this. Again, in my mind, I had to move him up after watching his performance.
Yep. CJ, you are not statistically the lowest, but I think you are mentally the lowest. So talk to me about Allen Robinson.
Dang, you are mentally the lowest.
Mentally,
wow. Didn't mean to go there, but things have been said. I don't know.
Listen, I like Allen Robinson. I like Allen Robinson, the player. It's just the only reason he's not budged and moved up like I would like to. It's just because, just like Jason said, his quarterback. The quarterback thing is the big thing. I mean, Allen Robinson can't throw the ball to himself. So unless you get a better quarterback in there that can be more consistent and get him the ball, this is where he's going to be or move down for me, because he can have all the talent in the world, but if he's not getting yards and getting touchdowns from me, I'm sorry. I got to move you down, because you're a liability for me and my team, and you're going to be a huge risk for me in drafting if those things are not fixed. So that's why I have Allen Robinson where I got him.
And look, I get the concern. I get the Blake Bortles thought process, but, Doug Marrone, when he came in last year, the ship ran a little bit better. They have Tom Coughlin in there, who is going to make sure the ship runs better, or he will make changes. Allen Robinson, we all like. He is we talk about these prototypical wide receivers: frame, build, size, speed. I mean, he has all the measurables. Now, did we think he was going to repeat his magical 2015 year? No, we all thought he was going to return kind of to the mean a little bit. It ended up overcorrecting. He went from 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns to 883 yards and 6 touchdowns. All of that could pretty much be attributed to Blake Bortles. And look, if Blake Bortles gets back on track, there's no reason to say he doesn't split the difference, which is roughly where I have him statted out. I believe the true Allen Robinson, as far as a floor, is somewhere in the middle. And look, this is a guy who, volume, target monster. He last year had almost 50 more targets than the next highest targeted receiver. And it does not look like that is changing at all. If the quality of target changes and he gets better at beating double coverage, and guess what? They drafted a guy who you may or may not have heard us talk about yet, a guy named Leonard Fournette. They're going to have to crowd the line. They upgraded the offensive line as well. So, I mean, Leonard Fournette is going to run the ball down their throats. I think that they're going to be doing a lot of the Gary Kubiak type system as well, where they're going to run, and then run to set up the pass. And they're going to take these shots at Allen Robinson, which I think the linebackers and the safeties are going to start creeping up to deal with Leonard Fournette. And Allen Robinson is going to get you some big plays, and he's still going to get you volume because he's going to get a vast majority of the targets. I am very high on Allen Robinson. Do I think he gets back to 1,400 yards and 14 touchdowns? No, I don't have him set it out that way. Could it happen? Maybe, but I'm not projecting it. But he is that talent of player that I think it is obtainable. I have him getting about 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, which I think he could actually pull off. So does that seem out of the world of possibility to you guys?
I mean, it's doable. It's doable.
Jason?
No, to me, it doesn't seem outside the realm of possibility at all, especially if I'm right and Blake Bortles is just adjusting and will be fine at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and let's move on to our number 12 guy, a guy who, when I looked at my rankings, I was surprised I was this high on, but he statted out this way, and I know you guys are very high on him. I'm honestly beyond surprised that CJ is not the highest out of the three of us, or at least higher than me. I need some clarity here. And if you haven't guessed it, it is Tyreek Hill, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. I have him at 13, which seems high for me. CJ has him at 16, which feels really low to me. And Jason, you have him at 11, which does not surprise me that you're the highest. All three of us have moved him up in our rankings. He has moved up in ADP as well. He's now the number 17 wide receiver off the board, so we're very high on him as a show. He's going as the second pick in the 4th round. He was the 20th wide receiver last time we did this exercise. So, Jason, you're the highest. We'll just start with you.
Tyreek the Freak Hill. You know what? This guy is a guy that can throw the ball to himself. I mean, he is stupid fast. He's got the ability to outrun pretty much anybody on the field. And if you've been watching the preseason, he's all over the place. You know, he's all over the place. And the first thing that they did, I loved the very first play that they did. It was like thumbing their nose to everybody in the world. Was a long pass to Tyreek Hill. You know, it's not something that you see from Alex Smith very often. He doesn't throw the ball down the field. As we've been saying that for years now, basically, about this guy. He does not throw that ball down the field. But the very first play, he's like, guess what? I'm going to throw the ball down the field to speedy Tyreek Hill. And if he had thrown the ball a little bit more to his inside shoulder, Hill would have had a touchdown on that play. I mean, he had blown by everybody. So I expect to see a little bit more of that. I expect to see them want to get that ball into this kid's hands because he is absolutely explosive when he has the ball in his hands. He is going to be everywhere on that offense for them, and he's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be split out wide. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to be all over the place. So I cannot wait to see this guy in action, and I think he's going to have a fantastic year.
Yeah, I'm very disappointed where I have him. I try to move him up, but just the people that I have in front of him, that's where he is. But I'm not worried. He most likely will move up past a couple of these guys. But like Jason said, man, the situation and the opportunity that's in front of him, man, is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the departure of Jeremy Maclin and now those targets are up for grabs, and I see a lot of them going that way. The only knock I would say is just on Alex Smith. Can he be able to consistently get the ball down the field? And can Andy Reid put together plays that get Tyreek Hill in space? That's where he's most dangerous. Can he be able to get the ball to him, get the rock in his hands? And are you in a league that you can be able to capitalize on most likely special team point? I do see him now with this increased role, probably taking a step out of that. But I do see special situations and occasions that they might put him back there because he is that dynamic of a returner that you can be able to capitalize on points. So if all of that works in your favor, absolutely, Tyreek Hill is an absolute beast. I have him in a league that I just drafted in, and he's in my flex, and I feel amazing right there. Just that spot, just the possibilities of him being my flex and getting those points for me.
And this is why I'm surprised that I have him where I have him, but it just stats out that way. I have him doing a little bit better in the passing game than he did last year, about 200 more yards, another touchdown or two. I have him doing a little bit less in the running game, but still used pretty heavily there. He was the third leading rusher on the team last year. I'm buying into all the news, though. I get he's using all three phases, and that's great, and if you get points for returns, that's awesome, but they have been very adamant in saying that they are taking away special teams returns from him because that is a very high injury risk play, and he's now their number one receiver. So I basically took that as they're saying it and didn't give him much for that, and this is just where he landed. I have him getting one more touchdown, about 200 more yards, and getting just a couple yards less rushing, and I think one less touchdown. So I mean, and this is where he lands. He's 0.1 point away from even moving up one spot in my rankings, which I'm just like, oh, good Lord. Because I think his pace was unsustainable last year. He was putting up freakish numbers because he didn't come on till later on. But, I mean, look, even still, this is where he lands. Getting production in so many phases, plus Jeremy Maclin being gone, means that the volume is going to be at that increased rate throughout the entire season that he was seeing last year. You can't argue it. So I'm not a big believer in Tyreek Hill. I think that he will easily be a good fantasy weapon for you. My concern is how reliable he will be. But, I mean, if he's able to be this involved, he will get the yardage, the touchdowns. The production turns into fantasy points, so I can't argue that. So I'm not a believer, but I see him. He could easily be a good fantasy weapon. I have him as my number 13 wide receiver. So, I mean, I'm not making a very good argument because I'm torn because my stat-driven side points me one way and my feelings for him point me the other. And so I just go with where he lands. So you guys made the good argument there, so I guess we'll move on. Tyreek Hill, draft him at your own risk, but a lot of opportunity for production. So I think we all agree there. And, yeah, that's going to do it for us today.
That was weird.
I know.
Like talking to two different Griffins.
I know, because I'm so torn on the guy. Because, look, I'm not going to get into it. Yeah, I know. Jeez. I hate you
I just
so
wanted
much,
to hear
CJ.
him say actually to himself.
Actually.
He said actually to himself. I would be like, oh, my God.
Oh, jeez.
This is a troll fest between these two guys.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's frustrating. Like I said, stats point me one direction. My feelings toward him go the opposite way, so I just lean towards the stats, which I trust, which are based on all my opinions as well. So I have him as my number 13. He's our consensus number 2. He's going as the number 17 in the top of the 4th round, so that could be great value for you. We all have him higher than that. So, all right, that's going to do it for today. Let me run down those names really fast. We have Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Jordy Nelson, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas, A.J. Green, Dez Bryant, T.Y. Hilton, Doug Baldwin, Allen Robinson, and Tyreek Hill round out our top 12. When we see you again on Tuesday, we will be continuing our wide receiver rankings, moving on to the wide receiver 2s. So you're not going to want to miss that. That's when we're going to get into a little bit more of a debate. I mean, a lot of these guys are consensus rated high. Of course, we had a couple guys we're higher on as a show than the average, but we're going to get into some interesting debates moving on. As always, our Listener League winners. If you guys are going to respond to the invites, Chris Shaper, Equist23, and B. Jackson, you guys have until Tuesday's show to respond. So that's really Monday night. Because when we record on Tuesday, if we don't have you in the league, we're going to grab whoever wants it. First come, first serve. Comment down below on YouTube. Send us your submissions on Twitter. iTunes reviews can only help you. Head over to iTunes. Bring it on. So, potentially some openings coming down the line. So, remember, also if you want to support the show, head over to patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. Get yourself a lot of bonus perks, including bonus episodes every single week. All of these rankings can be found on the website, thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. We update them as we get through the shows. So, our running backs, quarterbacks, and tight ends are live. Our wide receivers will be live after Tuesday's show. You can see our older rankings, but they have changed since then. And remember, just subscribe. We're here every Tuesday and Friday. And as we mentioned, follow the show on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. Get yourself the breaking news as it breaks, because that's how you get information in between recordings. Or you can follow us individually. I'm at G Palmer FFF. CJ's at CJ Hickman 89. Jason at Jason Cabrera 13. So with that, we are out of here. Any parting thoughts, guys?
Guys, it's a big week for wrestling. SummerSlam, NXT Takeover on Saturday. Hey man, hit Jason and I up on Twitter, man. Hit us up what you think about the event. Who's your favorite wrestler? What you expect is going down, man. We love talking about wrestling. Let's get it, man.
Yep. Anything to add, Jason?
Nope. That's pretty much it. Let's do it.
Nope. All right, we're out of here. Everyone take care. Have a great weekend. We will see you on Tuesday. Bye.
Life in the fast lane, moving at the speed of life, and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank, but I'm almost at the finish line, so I can't stop now. I don't really know where I'm headed, 'cause I'm enjoying the ride. I'm gonna roll till I drop and ride till I die. Life in the fast lane, life in the fast lane.
Especially if you don't actually join us.